We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2. Yes, it's that time. GarageBand Weekly live here on Studio Live today. Let's do it.
GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Need an answer to your question, John, you'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Hey, John, hey, John, GarageBand Weekly.
Yes, it is that time again where we talk about all GarageBand all the time. I'm just getting set up here for the show because I've got some things and some stuff that we're going to be talking about and showing you today. So there's a little sneak peek of that. But before that, we've got some news of the week. We've got a feature topic here. We're talking the Alchemy Synth today. I'm going to show you how to use all the bits and pieces within there. Talking a little bit about subscriptions for software. Is that a thing that you like? I don't know. We'll find out. And we're talking knobs. Yeah, I'm going to show you how to use the knobs on your keyboard synthesizers, and we've also got plugin of the week, resource of the week, and a whole lot more here on the show. Welcome if you are here live. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you're having a good weekend. I believe it's a long weekend in the United States, as we'd call it here in Australia, a holiday weekend. Is that what you might call it? So I hope you are all doing well. Let's jump into the news and the notes, shall we? So, what's been going on? Well, it's been kind of dominated by the new hardware still. I know. We will get to the point where we no longer have to talk about the new hardware, but it is the new hotness, and it is what is being discussed at the moment. So as you may know, as we talked about last week, the iPad Pros came early. Yes, it's an early Christmas present for all of the iPad Pro orderers, including our friend Patrick over at the GarageBand Guide. He got his hands on one already as well. In fact, he's got a video out about that. I've just watched it. Let's just come over here. We'll search GarageBand Guide in the YouTubes, and we'll take a look. Here it is. Here's the man with the plan, Patrick. And yeah, 2020 11-inch iPad Pro. Before you buy, who is this for? And that is a good question. We've answered it a couple of times here already. The verdict is in. Patrick's verdict is the same as my verdict, which is the same as pretty much everyone else's. And that is, we don't know yet. It's not actually a big upgrade. So here's the bottom line. We'll do it really quick here. If you own a 2018 iPad Pro, a 2020 iPad Pro, or an iPad Air 4th Gen, all the USB-C models, this update doesn't really do much yet because there are no apps that you can run that need any more than the processing power of those A12 processors or even the A10 processors with 4 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes of RAM. The new M1 chips that they've added to the iPads Pro mean that we can have up to 8 gigs and even up to 16 gigabytes of RAM. Plus, we've got that blazing fast M1 chip. Now, what Patrick did in his video is he loaded up on GarageBand. He put 32 tracks. He put all the plugins, all of the effects, and it was fine. But then again, the 2018 one was pretty fine too. So there's not a whole heap of difference. If you're really pushing to the extreme ends with GarageBand, maybe. Here's who it is for, though. If you've been waiting a while to update and you're like, oh, I was tempted by the 2020 Pro, I was tempted by the iPad Air 4th Gen, but I didn't quite pull the trigger, now is the time. This is the sweet spot because the price only went up a tiny bit on the 12.9 inch. It didn't go up at all on the 11 inch, and you get yourself a whole lot more bang for your buck if you do go and buy that. And if you are looking to buy an iPad, you can jump over here to the iPad Buyer's Guide. Now, I haven't updated this because I've been waiting to read these reviews to get the feedback. I haven't updated this with the 2021. So you can see it's still there as September 2020. But this week, it will be updated. So maybe by the time you're watching this on the replay, it'll be updated. If you go to studiolivetoday.com/iPad, it'll give you the iPad guide. So you can watch some videos about iPads, and you've got my recommendations. Now, spoiler alert, the best performance, all that's going to happen here is that we're going to grab these iPad Pro 2020 and move it to 2021. So they are definitely the best performance iPads. And I've got a feeling that the 4th Gen Air needs to come in here as well. So there'll probably be some shuffling with the performance and the entry level and the all-rounder iPads because, yeah, the 2021 is definitely going to be the go-to if you're in the market. Don't forget the comparison chart is down here as well. So you can actually go there and look at this one. It's all 100% free and able to be used. So this just needs to have these new ones added added down here to the bottom because we don't have them in there yet. Oh, wait, we do. Do we? No, we don't. I was going to say, I thought I'd already added them. No, I've got the 4th gen there, not the 5th gen iPad Pro. So 2021s need to be added in. But you can see here all the different features on every different model of iPad, and you can download that. You can print it out if you're going iPad shopping. It's a handy resource that I've put up there for all of you. Greg Hernandez says the Air 4 was better performance for music than the iPad Pro 2020. Yeah, keep in mind that the Air 4 is using the A14 chip, and as opposed to the A12. So it's actually got newer hardware. Doesn't have as much RAM. It's only got 4 gigabytes, I believe. I've just realized I haven't updated even the Air 4 here on the list. I haven't got the amount of RAM or the exact chip in here. Pete's got some work to do. But you're right. In terms of the actual pure processing power, the Air 4, iPad Air 4 is a newer chip and is going to give you more performance there. The Pro just brings in the Pro Retina display screen and slightly more RAM, up to 6 gigabytes of RAM on that one. So yeah, it's a thing and a place, right? Now, as I mentioned, and as Patrick mentioned in his video, and as everyone's talking about at the moment, why would you get this iPad, and will we be getting Pro apps on the iPad? Now, John Prosser from Front Page Tech, who's one of the big Apple leakers, still think that the word leaker is weird, has said that yes, he's got a confirmed source that says that Final Cut, Logic Pro, and Xcode will be released as Pro versions for iPad OS. Take that with what you will, because this is the same dude that got the March announcement wrong and had to shave off his eyebrows. So, do we trust John Prosser's sources? I don't know, but it's what he said anyway. So, it's a possibility. On yesterday's show, so on the Creator Town Hall yesterday, Jade Starr joined me and we had a bit of a chat. And as we workshopped this and thought about, will we see a Logic version for iPad? Will we see Final Cut Pro for iPad? Jade kind of put out a little bit of an interesting thought, which is that Apple are more than likely to make this a subscription service. Yeah, we'll talk about subscription services a bit later, but it's more than likely to be a subscription service because I can't fathom where the price point lands for something like Logic or Final Cut Pro on an iPad, because they're both very expensive pieces of software, like $300 plus, depending where you are in the world, pieces of software. You can't really charge $300 on an iPad. I guess it would probably be $49 or a $99 buy if it was outright. I'm becoming more and more confident that it will not be an outright purchase, that it will be part of Apple's big push to subscription services. So if you saw the last couple of announcements, you'll know that they are all in. A couple of announcements ago, they've announced Apple Fitness and Apple TV, and obviously Apple Music's been around for a long time. Two announcements ago, they launched Apple One, which is the let's bundle everything, the games, the TV, the music, everything together. And do I see them putting out a Pro version of that? Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think it's possible. Because the other thing we have is iCloud drive storage. So I pay for iCloud drive storage here in Australia. It's $15 a month for 2 terabytes. So they already know that I'm kind of a pro in terms of I've got a lot of large files that I want to store. So a Pro subscription that gives you maybe even more storage, maybe 4 terabytes of storage, and access to Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro on my iPad for $19.99 per month, $29.99 per month. I don't know. What do you think? Is this something that's going to happen? I think it's a possibility. The other thing that we talked about, and we said yesterday, we're putting all these things out there because one of them might be true, and then we can look like geniuses. But the other thing is, does Logic and Final Cut actually make sense on an iPad? Or do they do something like they did with the Alchemy Synth, which is just add a version that is like a Pro feature, but only to certain iPads? So do they bring out GarageBand Pro and iMovie Pro and then put them on a Pro subscription that only pros can get? Would you pay extra for GarageBand Pro? Would that completely segment the market and poor people left behind on regular GarageBand be left in the dark, not able to use the Pro Logic features? I don't know. I'm thinking it's a possibility. So yeah, let me know what you think. Guzzo, not a fan of the subscription. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Greg Hernandez, loving my 2021 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabyte. Yeah, and I'm not saying this to say I wouldn't buy one. If I didn't already have this 2020 iPad Pro that works perfectly and does everything I need sitting in front of me that I spent $2,000 on a year ago, then yeah, I would probably be lining up and I'd probably already have one ordered and in. But at this point in time, it's probably not there. It's probably not quite at the point where I need to. But all of that may change on the 7th of June because WWDC is coming, which is the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. They'll announce things about iOS 15 and iPadOS 15, and we do have an inkling that there's going to be some pro app announcements. If not at that announcement, maybe at one of the... Because remember, WWDC is a conference. It's not just the one. The keynote is what everyone gets all excited and frothy about, but there's also a bunch of other stuff that goes into there. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about here today with the news. But I wanted to put out here, if you do have a question, by the way, if you have a question, you can put the word question in front of your question and I'll answer your question if you're here live. Just drop it in the comments. If you're watching on the replay, don't worry, we love you just as much. You can put your comments down in the comments section and I'm always down there. I'll always circle back around and check those out. But we'll move on in just a moment to some Q&A, to tip of the week, to plug-in of the week, and we'll get into some GarageBand goodness. So we'll have a quick drink. But before we do that, today's show is brought to you by the GarageBand Beginner's Guide over at Studio Live Today. Yeah, that's me. So the GarageBand Beginner's Guide, you can go to studiolivetoday.com/courses. As you can see down there, you've got access to this. It's $10, flat $10, PayPal it, and it is an interactive course. It's 5 hours of handpicked content. Now, Pete, why would I want this when you put all this stuff on your YouTube channel for free? This is for folks who are too busy, who don't want to go to the effort of finding everything, who want a guided experience. Because what you've got here is if you go over to the guide, it'll take you through step by step. So it'll talk about what GarageBand is, how to connect up your gear, how to start your first song, how to mix it, how to master it, even how to release it. So it goes through step by step all of the processes. It's got a complete searchable database here. So if we go in here and we say, I want to learn about how to use compression, we can search that out. It'll give us the search results here, and then it'll find the relevant video that talks about compression. It brings it brings up my mug, and there you go. You've got that. You've got your closed captions that you can put on there. You can watch that video. It'll then give you some other suggestions of other places you can go. And look, you can even message me. If you get totally stuck, you can flick Pete a message and say, g'day, how's it going? And I'll answer your questions there. So there you go, studiolivetoday.com/courses. Head over there and $10 and you can be hooked up and ready to go. All right, let's. I'm going to answer a question here because I saw this on the GarageBand Users Facebook page. Shout out to my friends over at the GarageBand Users Facebook page. I do love you all. This question came up, and Patrick, who's the star of the show today, apparently, I did actually ask Patrick to come on the show. He was unfortunately unavailable, but I'm sure he'll be back on a show soon, and probably after WWDC, and we'll be able to talk about all of the cool things that were or were not announced. But a question that came up on GarageBand Weekly this week is, when you come in here to Apple Loops and you're scrolling through, and we'll just reset, we'll reset our filter. All right, we're scrolling through our loops here. Have you ever noticed that whenever you have these numbers on things, sometimes you got some skips going on here? So the question was around some of the dark riffs here. So if we just search Apple Loops and we go dark, I've got a dark side. So these dark heavy riffs, why do we have dark heavy riff number 4, 5, 6, and 18? Wouldn't it be cool to have a whole bunch more dark heavy riffs? Well, yeah, it would. And you know where they are? They're in Logic. So it's relevant and related to what we were talking about at the start of the show, is that, yeah, in Logic Pro, you've got all of these. So the reason that as you're going through these, you've only got sort of 1, 2, 3, and sometimes you've got like 1, 7, and 26, is that all the rest of those are in Logic Pro. So if you do want all the sounds at this point in time, you need yourself a Mac and you need yourself Logic Pro, because that's where all those other loops and sounds reside that are not sitting there in your GarageBand loop browser, in case you want to know there. Russ would like to know if Logic is coming to iPad too. I want to see if I can get a shirt in time for WWDC that just says, Tim Cook, dear Tim Cook, is Logic Pro coming to iPad? Maybe not. All right, let's move on because our feature topic, what we're looking at here today, is the Alchemy Synth. You may have seen me setting up for this in the intro. The Alchemy Synth. Alchemy Synths were added in GarageBand 2.3, and it was the first thing that was added that was only able to be used on certain bits of hardware because it does require a 64-bit iPad. The older 32-bit architecture iPads and iPhones do not run Alchemy Synth. So to use Alchemy Synth, first up, you do need to be running the latest version of GarageBand, which is an iOS 13 or iOS 14, and you do need to have an iPad Air 2, an iPhone 6S up or above, an iPad Mini 4 or above, or an iPod Touch 7th generation. Got through it. So you do need a more recent iPad, but that's most these days, really. Like, there's a lot of iPads out there that can use this. So why is Alchemy Synth so cool? Well, it was kind of unheard of that something of this power would be added to an app like GarageBand for free, because the Alchemy Synth has some features in there and the ability to sculpt and craft your sound that just hasn't been seen or heard in anything like this before. So we've added in one of the Alchemy Synth sounds here. This is the soft analog. No, it's not. That's not the Alchemy sound. That is a regular synth sound. This is the Alchemy sound, my favorite one, the Epic Cloud Formation. I was just thinking, hang on, that doesn't look right. This is Alchemy Synth. Now, on the surface, you're like, Pete, it's a synth sound and it's keyboards, and we can come in here and we can change these around, and we've got a whole bunch of bass and brass and keys and leads and everything in between. So if we go the airy synth lead, which is another one of my favorites, 80s. The 80s are here, right? So this is what we can do with Alchemy Synth. Let's lay down a bit of a beat so that we can actually put the synth to the test. So we'll come back out here to our main screen and we'll come into, let's use the beat sequencer. I don't use the beat sequencer often enough, but it is super cool. What we'll do is we'll grab, won't use the 808, but let's go with something a bit interesting. What about one of our vintage drum machines? Why don't we go with the TR-707? Yeah, I'm going to go with that absolute default 707 beat because I reckon this could help craft a bit of an 80s tune. So if we hit the record button on this one, it's going to record in. And we'll just record in 2 bars of that because we can then loop it out. We'll come back out to here. This is why the beat sequence is so cool. We can just grab this end and then we can tap it and then we can loop it. And there you go. We've got 8 bars of, oh yeah. So let's now bring in some Alchemy Synth. So I'll actually delete this out so I can show you how to use it and how to add it completely. So we hit the plus button here. We go to keyboards, and you can tap straight on Alchemy Synth here, but if you want to see where these are stored, tap on More Sounds, and then up the top here, make sure you go all the way back to your main categories. This is where people get stuck. Sometimes I say to people, oh, you can go in and use the other instruments here and grab a French horn and an oboe, and they're like, I can't see them. And often it's because they're already here in the Alchemy Synth, and they're looking at these going, I don't have other. No, you do have it, you just got to go back. So go back to your main categories, but in this case, we do want to go into the Alchemy Synth. And now I've forgotten what that cool instrument that we were using was, so we're going to have to find something else. Let's go to Synth here, and let's find a classic 80s synth. Come on, we're doing an 80s track. Classic 80s synth has to work for us, right? Yeah, very cool, right? Now, we can record something straight in here, and it'll be fine. So let's just record in a bit of a sound here. We'll hit the record button and... So we record in a little pattern there, and we're getting our 80s sounds built out here. The start was a bit dodgy, wasn't it? Start was dodgy. But here's the good thing. Of course, we can edit this. So these are just MIDI notes. So Alchemy Synth uses your MIDI instrument. You can come in here, and if you're a little bit late on that, we can go, whoop, let's just bring it on back. We can hit done on that. We can, of course, use things like quantization that I've talked about before. If we go to our track settings, we can quantize this. At the moment, we've got none on there, but if we were out of time, we can quantize it. But there's so much we can do to shape our sound with the Alchemy Synth, and that's what I wanted to show you here. So if we go back to our keyboard by ticking, clicking, tapping on this one, then we can come in here and adjust this sound. So let's hit play, and I'll show you. First of all, we've got these pads. Now, these 8 pads, you can obviously select each individual one. So you can have the bright, the filter down, the tremolo, the thin low frequency oscillator. There's a whole bunch, and every different synth has different settings here. These are your presets. So consider these your presets, and the cool thing about this is you can land it in between a few presets, so you can really hone your sound in. Let's play this back. In fact, we'll loop it first, because we've only got half of it there, don't we? We'll zoom on out, and we'll loop this so that we've got 8 bars to play with. We'll tap it, we'll loop it, and then we'll come in here to our sound again. So I'll play this back, and we'll move this around, and you'll hear that we can get some pretty cool different sounds with this. All right, cool. So what I'm thinking is I like the bright, and I like the wide, and I like a little bit of this like unison decay. So what I can do is I can actually just slide it around about here and just put it there. And I've created my own custom preset that's like a bit of wide, a bit of bright, a bit of that, and a bit of that. You can like mix and match. So now my synth sound is this. And that's sort of the sound that I want. There you go. Now, you do have things like pitch bend wheel and modulation wheel that you can play around with over here as you're recording, and a velocity dial here that we talked about in a recent show. So you can play with those as well if you want to explore. But there's so much more to this, because if we scroll across here, check this out. Yeah, a lot of folks don't even ever touch this, but we've got another entire group of dials and knobs. You like knobs? Today's show is going to be all about knobs. So if you're a knob fan, welcome aboard. So on this front screen, when we move this around, what you'll notice is that the delay, the cutoff, the chorus, and the resonance are all changing, yeah? So as we move this around, it's changing those dials. So that is what is actually being affected. Now, we can then come over here and manually adjust these, so we can actually get a more customized tone. So if I want this tone to start with, but I'm like, actually, I kind of need a little bit more delay and chorus on that, what I can do is play it. And I can customize the tone, customize the sound to what I want it to be. I'm just going to bump that volume a little bit, because now that I've adjusted it, it's gone a bit quiet compared to our drum beat. So let's come back into this. Then what we can do is scroll on across, and all you need to do is grab at the top here and scroll it. Doesn't work with the mouse, because GarageBand's mouse support is a little bit chunky. But if we scroll across there, we can come here and we can do all this. So here's the same 4 knobs that we saw on our front screen, but now we've got our amp LFO, we've got our panning knob, we've got our glide speed, we've got our unison knob here, and we've got these. We've got our crossfade XY here, and then we've got our low frequency oscillator and a high pass cutoff. So we can actually use these to affect our sound. So let's go ahead and hit the play button and play around with some of these. So you can quickly make a bit of a mess of things, really. So I tend to do these sort of things and then come back here and go, oh, that was terrible, let's just reset it to default. And then we're back to our... We've still got a lot of delay going on there, don't we? Now, you can then come in here to your presets and actually save the preset that you've done. So if I loved this preset, I don't, but if I did, I could come in here and save this and just go Classic 80s Synth Pete Edition. And I can save in that, and then in the future, if I want to use this, I can actually just come in here to my actual custom sounds. See how I've got a custom folder here now? I can come to that custom synth. So we'll leave that one for now. Let's do another one, because there's some other cool things that you can do here with the Alchemy Synth. I'm actually going to mute that one, and we're going to hit plus. Let's add another synth sound here, shall we? Why don't we go with a pad? So hit Alchemy Synth. It's going to bring us in here, and it's gone with the Epic Cloud Formation. Happens to be one of my favorites. And I actually like using the Epic Cloud Formation in pitch mode, because you can change. The other thing you can do here in your Alchemy Synth is change it to pitch mode. So now we can do that, yeah. Now, there's some cool things we can do here because, as you know, we can move this around as we play. We can move that. And if we want to record in those changes, look what happens. If we hit the record button here and we start playing, so we've played in that part and it actually records in those changes. So if we hit play on this, take a look. No hands. Look, Ma, no hands. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Pete, that's great, but I've only got 2 hands and it's hard enough for me to play a keyboard instrument without having to worry about doing all of that business at the same time. Well, you've got quite an attitude, but I hear you and I understand. So let's delete this out and we'll try that again. But this time, let's just record in. I'll try and do a better job of something a bit cooler this time. We'll start with it here up here in the Losh setting. We'll hit record and I'll just play in a part. I'll play something that makes a bit more sense and we'll try this out. Ready? There you go. So we've recorded that in. Pretty cool, yeah, but a bit boring because it's just sitting there on that Lush setting. If we play it back, it sounds like this. Not bad, but we can do better, right? So if we wanted to now tweak this, any of these knobs, any of the pads here, any of these knobs here, and even our XY, we can actually move while we're actually recording. We can do that using this mode up here, track settings, recording mode, and we can do merge recordings on. So what we're going to do is we're going to re-record this, but instead of actually using the keys and playing something, we're just going to record in our knobs. Yep, we're going to just play with our knobs and nothing else. And what we can do is actually record over the top of this. It's pretty cool. If we hit the record button here, it's going to play back that thing that I just played, but I'm going to grab this filter and flanger cutoff and do a little bit of funky playing around with this because look at that. Look at that effect. It looks cool. So let's hit the record button and show you what I mean. There you go. Not perfect, but again, we can try that over and over again because we can undo it and try it again. So if we hit play on this one now, check it out, watch our little knob. Now we can't edit that, but of course we can continue to layer up different sounds. So say we wanted to use these, play with this panning now as we do it. Let's hit record again and we'll grab it. So when people say you can't do automation of anything except for your volume in GarageBand, well, you kind of can because you can automate any of your synth sounds, any of your knob movements by just using the merge recordings function and then recording in your changes. Because now if we hit play, watch this, we've got our panning modulation here will go and we'll also have our flanger and our high pass filter going. Watch it. And if we want to get super funky, let's come back over here and we'll play around with our knobs, our sliders over here on the pad at the same time. And let's just create something super wacky. There you go. Now everything's moving. So you can see how you can layer this stuff up and create some pretty darn cool sounds with our Alchemy Synth. So, and don't forget, there are literally hundreds of Alchemy Synth patches, a whole heap that have been added in all of the different packs that we've had over the time. So you see, you've got your Godenda Latina pair, your Flex and Flow pack. There's been a bunch of them. So if you go to your sound library, you can download a whole bunch of additional ones. And there's strings, there's brass, there's mallets. And as you can see here, the cool thing about this is when you're using something like this, make sure you do customize it because every man and his dog, right, is using. But if you come in here and you're like, oh, I actually want it to be around about there, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to drop this to here and I'm going to give it a little slower attack, slower release. I want my sound to actually be like this. Right? A lot of cool stuff that you can do with it. You can play around with it to your heart's content. So especially if you're creating electronic music, or even if you're not, if you're just adding pads to rock songs or to any other sort of songs, the Alchemy Synth can be something that you can check out. There's other videos here on the channel all about the Alchemy Synth as well, so you can check those ones out. But yeah, happy synthing and happy creating. All right, let's move on from there. I could play with the Alchemy Synth for like a day. I could just sit down for 24 hours and just play around with it because there's so much fun things that we can do with it. But we got to move on. And I think our next topic is actually something very similar. I think we're very much about the knobs this week. So, but before we do that, you know what? Let's take a little bit of a break. We'll have a quick beverage, and we'll have a rant here. Hello to the folks who are here live, by the way. While I have a drink, hello. We've got N. Ezekiel Bohun. Hello to you. Hello, AGN. Hello to Magic Jones. Studio One Professional is a very good DAW. I know many people that use it. Hello to Cecilia Reed, who uses the iPhone. Yeah, if you are on an iPhone, it's very, very similar. The only thing that you need to do on the iPhone is you may need to just hit the little knobs button and it'll bring it up the top. It may not be there by default, but all the same stuff is exactly there. So there you go. I think I've said g'day to everyone else here that has dropped on in. Bear's in the house. Hello to you, Bear. Hello to the usual stuff. Dogbird in the house. There you go. Tom Rochelle, thank you for being here as always and being a wonderful moderator. Jade Star, Gary Hubbs, Michael, Stu Cash, a whole bunch of folks who are here. So thank you for being here. And if you do have any questions, please throw question in the chat and I will try to answer any questions that you may have. But let's go on a rant, shall we? I want to rant about subscriptions. And I want to give you some tips. We talk about this a lot, I know, but subscription services, which ones are good, which ones are bad? Should you use them, should you not? My personal opinion, because it's a rant and that's how these work, is that subscriptions are great for content that is constantly changing, updating, and evolving. So I like my Netflix subscription because new shows come on Netflix, new seasons of old shows come on Netflix, old classics that I used to love from the 80s come on Netflix. So every month when I pay my $10 to Netflix, or $15, I should probably know that, I get something new, yeah? That's cool. Where I don't like subscriptions is where it's a static product that has very limited updates, and that includes most software. So I am not a proponent of the SaaS model, the software as a service subscription model. Now, do I use it? Yeah, I do. But the platforms that I use that are software also include a lot of updates. So examples, I use TubeBuddy. That is a plugin for Chrome, but TubeBuddy are constantly changing, evolving. They have to keep up. When YouTube changes something, TubeBuddy have to change their thing as well. And if you don't know about TubeBuddy, it's something that helps you with your YouTube video optimization. So if you're releasing videos on YouTube, TubeBuddy can help you with your tags, your titles, your descriptions, and how to get everything there. So TubeBuddy is a good service. I pay like $8 a month for it, and I'm happy because even though it's a piece of software, every month I'm finding something new or they're adding something new. The same with Canva. I use canva.com. It's a design app. And again, you could say, well, it's just like Photoshop. Why would you do it, pay for Photoshop every month? Well, it's different from that because Canva, again, are adding new features. Every month they're putting in new photos into the library. They're putting in new templates. They're putting new designs, new fonts, new titles, a whole bunch of new stuff. Animated GIFs, all sorts of things. So I like Canva for that. When it comes to music, I'm not quite so thrilled. Like if I came in here, there is an EQ plugin that will remain nameless that actually is a subscription model. So I could come in here and if I'm going to add an EQ, I would come in here and I would find an EQ that I want to add. And what's one that I would most likely use? Well, it'd probably be a free one. It'd probably be LRC7 here. Or I might want to use, I forgot what Klebgrad's EQ is called. Bad example. But, not bad example, bad example. But yeah, if I wanted to use a plugin, I would come in here and use it. Like, let's say that, what's one that I've actually paid a little bit of money for? What about the piano app? What is it called? I've lost my mind here. Oh, it's early days. What's the name of the really fancy piano, people? Ravenscroft. Thank you, brain. It came there eventually. So why do I not have it on here? Anyway, so let's just say we'll use Stark. So let's say I've paid for this Stark amp. This was a $30 plugin that I paid for. So Klevgrant got my $30 and I get this Stark amp. Now Stark amp is up to version 1.0.3. So there's been 3-point upgrades in its life. and that was mostly bug fixes. There hasn't really been a lot of new features added to the Stark amp sim over that time. So I've paid $30 and I'm pretty happy. I've owned Stark for 2 years and I paid $30. And every year I use it, I feel a little bit better because I've only paid for it once. If I was paying, say, a $3 a month subscription for this, I would have already paid for it like 2 times over. Even 99 cents a month, even $10 a year, I get to the end of the 3rd year and I'm feeling like, oh, I don't really want this anymore. So my feeling is that when it comes to static software and static plugins, subscription model is not the right way to go. Yes, it's right for a developer point of view because they get continuous income, but what advantage is there then for the end user, and what incentive is there for them to update? And I've talked about this with others, with Jade and with others as well, but I would even pay. So if Stark version 2 came out and I had to pay for it, I'd hope I'd get a discount. So maybe if it was $30, I'd get it for 15 because I'm a Stark user and it had a whole bunch more features. I would rather that than to have to pay a subscription hoping that one day Cliff Grant will update Stark. That's my view. That's my opinion. But let me know, what do you think? Do you like subscriptions? What do you use subscriptions for? And would you subscribe? Like we said earlier in the show, would you subscribe to something like Logic? What would be your upper end? Let's say Logic is launched tomorrow for the iPad and everyone can use it. Let's just go absolute dream state. Anyone running iOS 15, if you've got a device compatible with iOS 15, can download Logic and can run Logic on your iPad. What would be your monthly pay? What's your upper limit of monthly amount that you would pay for Logic Pro? And no, this isn't an official Apple survey. I know a lot of people think, I was joking about this with Jade yesterday, a lot of people think that that we have some sort of in with Apple, that we get this secret information, and that when I sit here and say, I got no idea what's being announced at WWDC, that people are sitting there going, oh, yeah, you do. You just want to keep it all to yourself. No. I guarantee you, I know probably less than most of you. I know as much as you do by watching Renee Ritchie and John Prosser and these people. So I don't know either. But yeah, let me know what you think about it because it's an interesting one. All right. So AGN has a question. Pete once mentioned play-alongs provided at Spotify. How to find them? Obviously, I haven't used the correct keywords. Any advice? Yeah, play-alongs provided at Spotify. I don't know what that means. Sorry, play-alongs provided at Spotify, like instrumental tracks that Spotify has, playlists, getting on playlists at Spotify. Might need to just provide some more detail in your question because I'm not sure I completely understand. So there you go. Guzzo Evolve's question. A friend asked me to record a song we're working on in 432 hertz tuning. I can tune my guitars easily enough, but I need to use the bass and keys in GarageBand. Is there a workaround? Guzzo, it's almost like you read my mind, my friend. Sort of. The answer is a resounding sort of, and I'm actually going to cover that in the plugin or app of the week. So you know what? Why don't we just dive into it? Why don't we switch the order up a bit here and go with our plugin or app of the week for this week? Let me just get set up here because I need to make sure I have this in here. Is this the one that we're going? Yes. All right. So I'm just going to come in here and we'll turn this. Oh, I'm running the wrong thing. There you go. We'll turn that off for now. And you'll already know what we're doing here. All right. So, but yeah, short answer is Guzzo is yes, but it's not as easy as you may think, and it may not sound the best. Ned Kirby says sounds like a damn good deal for $10. $10 a month for Logic on iPad. Who's with us? Who'd pay $10? I probably would. I'd probably feel a little bit bad about it, but I probably would. What I would pay is like $10 a month for the Pro app service. If you got Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, I don't know what else you get. Xcode. That's not really an app you'd use. Not sure. All right, let's jump into this one. So, our plugin of the week this week is something a little bit strange. Have you ever been in a situation where you need to change something? You need to put it up or down a certain number of semitones or a certain number of cents or a certain number of hertz, and you've not been able to do it? Well, it's easy to do with a guitar because guess what? You just tune your guitar to the tones that you want. But what about if you've got a loop or a keyboard instrument or some other instrument? Is there a way to do it? The answer is for free in GarageBand, sort of, maybe-ish. The reason is that anytime that you're taking a sound and you're manipulating it, you are going to lose quality in that sound. That all being said, if you want to give it a go, I'm going to show you how here. Now, I've got a loop in here already. This is just one that I've recorded. It's it's actually from another video I did. It's a power chord in G. We've got a clean power chord here. It sounds like this. So we can throw an amp sim on this. We can do a bunch of things. In fact, let's just do that, just to make it sound a bit cooler. Let's come in here and throw it onto just one of our default GarageBand amps, because our GarageBand amps are pretty cool. So why don't we go and we'll chuck a distorted tone on here. It's going to give us the vintage stack there and the glam rock tone. Is this going to sound cool as a glam rock tone? Let's grab it, chuck it down here and play it down on this one. No, it doesn't sound good at all. Forget I said anything. We're just going to leave it as clean. And it's a good thing that we are leaving it as clean, because there is an option in here. If we hit the mixer button here and we go to our plugins and EQ, I've already added it in here. It's this one. It's the AUNewPitch. Now, the AUNewPitch will help you give your sound a new pitch. Yeah, it's in the title. It does what it says it does. To add it, we hit the edit button on any track here. You hit plus. You hit the audio unit extensions, and these are these orange Apple AU extensions that you have down the bottom here. Have you ever seen these? These are basically brought across from GarageBand or from Mac OS. They're the built-in iOS audio unit plugins, and you have them, but you may have to enable them. And there's another video that I've got that shows you how to enable them. You just need to go to the settings options and go to GarageBand and enable iOS plugins. Very super simple to do, and you'll be off to the races and good to go. So if we tap on this one, the AUNewPitch. Now, if we tap this to open it, here you go. Pitch scale in sense and an overlap setting, and then we've got a peak looking setting here. As I said at the front, I'm going to warn you that as soon as you start changing a tone, as soon as you start using this, it's not going to sound as good. You're going to introduce artifacts, especially if you're going down, but even if you're going up in tone, it's going to add some artifacts here. Now, what is a cent? That's something else to explain here. Cents, 100 cents is one semitone. So 1,200 cents is an entire octave, 12 semitones. 100 cents is one semitone. Here's where things get stupid. The pitch scale option here is a slider, and it goes up and down in 4.25 cent increments. Now, why is it doing that? I think it's got something to do with the fact that that's the Hertz scale, because I'm pretty sure that 31 cents, or someone correct me if I'm wrong here, because we're doing this live here in the chat. It's either 31 or 32 cents that is like 8 Hertz, the difference between 440 Hertz and 432. Now, one of the use cases for this is to actually scale your tone down here. Let's say someone gives you a track and they've recorded it at 432 Hertz. Now, 440 Hertz, which is your A tone, is the standard. But there are a lot of folks who are like, nope, 432 is what I like, because there's a lot of studies into it. Now, go into your Googles and search 432 Hertz. You'll find a whole treasure trove of stuff. But yeah, if we come down here and we go, say, let's bring this down 31.2, and you can see where the clunkiness comes in. There's no way to just enter a figure. You got to put it like that. But let's say we bring this tone down like that. We've got this plugin on here now. With it off, this is what this loop sounds like. And now, if we turn on that new pitch, guess what? It's slightly lower, but it is also implementing a few little artifacts in there, right? Now, you can use things like this overlap feature. If you can adjust this around and try and find something that makes it sound a bit better, because this will change the tone a little bit if we hit play. And you can also experiment with this with your peak looking. If we turn that off, it gives us this. Which doesn't do so well. So, yeah, can you do it? Yes. Does it sound great? Not particularly. But once you start layering things up, it can actually be okay. And I've actually used this on drum sounds primarily to get that sound. Now, can you do semitones here? Well, yeah, you can. It's the same sort of problem here. is if we come into this one, here's one I prepared earlier. What I should probably do is create a GarageBand template that has a whole bunch of tracks with just the AUNewPitch set to particular numbers of cents. Because here I've got it at 300 cents, because what you have to do is kind of go up and down, and it'll slowly go up and down different amounts until you get it to the right amount. So now we've got this at 300 cents up, which is going to take us up 3 semitones. So with this one off, we're down here in G. If we want to bring it up 3 semitones, which is G sharp A B question mark, then we can turn this on and there you go. So we can turn it up. It does not sound super good. There are other options, of course. This is the free way to do it. There's an app called Audio Stretch, which I believe I've prepared earlier. Here's what I prepared earlier. Here's another tone that we've got here, and this is in Audio Stretch. So we can play it here. And this actually uses a much higher quality engine. So if we wanted to do that same 3 semitone up pitch, we can do that here. And you get a much better quality tone. So this is about a $10 app. So if you really want to change the pitch of your different sounds, I would recommend Audio Stretch. But if you want to play around in GarageBand, you can do this. Now there's one other option here. You might be saying, Pete, there's already a plugin. It's called the Vocal Transformer. Why can't I just use that? Well, you can. You can use the Vocal Transformer. This one, however, only does it in semitones. So this isn't going to work with your 440 to 432 hertz stuff. But if you wanted a quick way to do your 3 semitones, you can come in here and again. And because this is designed for vocals, you've also got a formant knob here. So you can play around with this and try this out. And you can quickly hear there that at the end of the day, the best option is to keep things in the original key that they should be in, because anytime you do this sort of stuff, it doesn't work so well. However, what it can be cool for is if you're using it on something like a drum loop. So if I came in here, and I've got a few drum loops in here, so let's grab this this hip hop loop, and we'll bring it down onto here, and we'll solo this track now. If we wanted to change the tone of this one, at the moment it sounds like this. We've still got that one soloed. We don't want that because it's going to be at a different speed now. Not a bad loop, yeah? But what if we wanted to change this up? We wanted to keep it at 96 BPM, but we wanted to change it up and just give it a bit of a different feel. Well, yeah, we can come in here. And the good thing about rhythm is you don't really have to worry. Where is it? New pitch. You don't really have to worry about what exact frequency it's at or exactly the number of semitones. So we can just chuck this up a bit higher. And we can get a different kind of feel, right? Oh, I've killed it. Sometimes you... Oh, no, I haven't. It's just... It doesn't go there. So if you want like an interesting detuned kind of tone in some of your beats and some of your loops, then using that to drop it down can be cool. So again... I get asked about this sort of stuff a lot, and for free plugins, for experimentation and for just having fun, the AUNewPitch and even the Vocal Transformer, jump in, play around with them. They can be a lot of fun, and we'll give you an idea there. And yeah, as Sion has said here, Audio Stretch Lite, you can get a light version of Audio Stretch, which is free, and you can experiment with it to start with, and then if you like it, like I do, you can use it here. And it's really good for backing tracks too. So I actually used it recently. My daughter's singing a song and she wanted to sing it at slightly higher. So all I did was dumped the song into Audio Stretch, bumped it up 3 semitones, and suddenly it's perfectly in her range. So that's a pretty cool way to utilize that app. So thank you, everyone. Greg says Koala Sampler has pitch and tempo. You can you can massage a key change out of loops. Cubase's built-in pitch change seems to work better. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Where people say to me, why would I use Cubase's instead of GarageBand? Things like that. Things like the ability to do pitch changes and time stretching, that's the number one thing. Especially if you're using a lot of loops and samples and you're an electronic producer, Cubase's can be great for that. GarageBand, as you saw there, you have to do a little bit of hard work and it's a bit clunky. And a great point here from Tom, which I wish I'd made in the main part. But yeah, it's a good way to disguise Apple loops. Exactly. Especially because Apple loops, even though you are legally allowed to use Apple loops, Apple don't mind you using Apple loops in any of your songs, even if you're selling them. If someone else has used that loop and then they've put that song as a content ID onto YouTube, and then you go to use it, guess what? You can still get a content ID or a copyright claim because you've used the copywritten part of the song. So it can be a bit of a bugger. All right, we're coming towards the end of the show. Hello, Banu. I hope you're doing well. Hello, Brian. Thanks. Yeah, Guzzo of Oz. A bunch of other folks have given ideas here in the chat as well. So yeah, there's more than one way to skin a rabbit. And yeah, that's the free way. So experiment with that, Guzzo. If you're only going down that like 32 cents or that sort of 8 hertz, it's going to be fine. It'll probably sound okay, especially if it's like just bass and you're mixing it in, but you may want to try some of those other ones if you've got it. The question that we had there, Michael says AGN play along on Spotify. Just type play along in the search. Yeah. Okay. So you mean as in like a play along? Gotcha. So I find these on YouTube more often than not. So if you go to YouTube and you do play along, so I was out of context there, but yeah, say you're a guitarist and you want to play along track, or you're a drummer and you want to play along track, I would just search play along drums or play along guitar in YouTube, and you can find a lot of people have actually put together instrumental tracks that you can actually play along with. So hopefully that helped you out. I only know 50 Cent. All other cents are imposters. Isn't it Fitty? Hey, Fitty. Is 50 Cent still a thing? Is it still something that goes around? Yeah, there you go. Pro bundle for $14.99 will get me thinking. Yeah, I reckon it's probably more likely. It'll probably be $14.99, which will end up being $19.99 Australian, which $20 a month. I don't know. Sion says, I doubt I'd get it if it was... Apparently I'm going through puberty. I doubt I'd get it if it was a subscription unless it was pay to own, which is almost zero chance. Almost zero chance, in my humble opinion. Anyway. Hello, Josephine. This is Matt, who's jumped into the house. Question. If someone mixes or masters your songs, are you supposed to include them in collaborators on DistroKid? It depends. Big, fat, giant, it depends. It depends on the deal that you've made with them, Josephine. So some people will produce things, you pay them money, and that's it. Service done. Service rendered. They don't want any credits. They don't want anything. If, as part of the deal that you make with them, it is that they are included as a collaborator, then yes. And is it a good idea to add them in there? Like, you don't have to put them as a featured artist or anything, obviously, but because DistroKid give you all of those different sections where you can put mixers, instruments played by... So, for instance, when Jade's played drums on my tracks, I've put her in as the drummer. Jade has actually mastered one of my tracks. I didn't put her as a mastering engineer in there, but I could, and I probably should. Doesn't really do anything, to be honest, and it doesn't really create anything anywhere except for on the metadata of a couple of places. But yeah, it's really down to that. Whenever you're working with someone, it's a good point to make. It's a good question to ask up front to say, because for instance, when I worked with Emil on the track that I did for him, I said, Emil, this is my gift to you. If you choose to give me anything, and make sure you get this stuff in writing. So I emailed him and said, I've sung on this track. I've done that as a gift to you for free. You now own the rights to this song. And that's important to do, because if Emil releases this song and then a year later I'm like, oh, I was a singer, I should be getting 50% of all royalties to this song, then Emil would go, but dude, you told me this at the time. And if it's he said, she said, she said, he said, that can make it tough. So try to get in writing when you're collaborating with people or when someone's doing a service for you. Is this a service that you're providing where I'm paying you and then it's done and I own absolutely everything and I don't need to provide attribution to you on any service or any platform? Or if you're a mastering engineer, are you doing it? And sometimes you can say, well, I'll put you as a collaborator if you're giving me 20% off, and then that might make them change their mind. But it's a good question, and unfortunately, like most things in music, it depends is the answer to that one. Hello, Switchblade. I hope you are doing well, and I hope that's a dangerous sounding name. I hope you are not as dangerous as your name sounds. Let's move on. We've got one more thing here. And I'll go tip of the week here. And the tip of the week is, where are we? The tip of the week is to put your screen up before you start talking about things. Let's do a little bit of cleaning up here because I've got a whole bunch of tracks here. And it gives me, does anyone else do this? When you've got too many tracks here, you just have to delete them. I have clutter syndrome. It's not a real thing, but I have this problem where there's too many things in front of me, I get distracted and I can't focus and concentrate. So there you go. We'll stick with these ones here. In fact, we'll add in a new beat here. We'll put a beat put a beat sequencer here so we can play around. Not drummer. Drums, beat sequencer. Let's use a different one this time, something that we haven't used for a while. What about the Midnight Vanguard? All right, let's record that in. We probably don't want that guitar there, do we? All right, guitar, you can take a rest. Take a break. And then we'll just zoop and loop this out. Man, I've got my friend Samantha Edge, who some of you may know, who's another Adelaide musician here. She's looking to get an iPad to just use for drums and like to use drummer and beat sequencer for backing tracks for drums. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea because no other platform lets you create drum beats and create backing tracks as easily as GarageBand does. Like literally just beat sequencer, do that, give me a track, and then you're off to the races. So yeah, anyway, I say all that to say nothing. Let's go and go into our tip of the week. So, tip of the week this week. Did you know that when you are using keyboard instruments here like this soft analog, that we actually have some extra knobs here that we can play around with? And these knobs are different on every different instrument. Yeah, it's true. Now, if you're on an iPhone, these knobs won't be there by default. There'll be a little knob button up here in the top right. All you need to do is tap on that and your knobs will be displayed horizontally. Yeah, we're going to say knobs a lot in this video, so you're going to have to get used to it. So all of our different instruments here, if we tap on the middle button here, you can see we're in our synth classics. We can use this for a whole bunch of other things. So we go to our synth pads and we go to the Dace bar. Take a look at this. This changes now. We've now got the filter LFO, which is low frequency oscillator. We've got a mix knob, we've got attack, and we've got release. Now, attack and release are going to be on most of them, and we've talked about this before, but the speed of your attack is when you hit a key, how quickly it will actually come in. If we slow down that attack, hear how that slowly ebbs up, and the same with our release. If the release is there, and we let go, it's gone. And if you've got a really long release, you can tap it and it keeps going and going and going. There you go. So yeah, so that's your attack and your release there. Your filter LFO and your mix. So you can change these as well. So if we turn this all the way out, we get a extra wub wub, and you can decide how much of that you want in there. Just a little or a whole gosh darn lot. Get those wubs going on, people. So, and you'll notice here that once you make those adjustments on your knobs, you've got this little dot here next to Dace bar. So this means that we can now say I really love this sound, which I kind of do. I love it. I love my wubs. So what I can do is actually tap on this instrument, hit save, and then down the bottom here, I can call this Dace bar Pete Wub and hit enter. And there you go. It puts it down in our custom folder, and you can customize a whole bunch of instruments and make them your own and put them in here. Let's try this with a different instrument, shall we? So we'll come back out to our mix here and we'll hit the plus button. So if we want to add a new one, we're going to go across to our keyboards, hit more sounds here. Now you can do this in Alchemy Synth, but Alchemy Synth has a whole bunch of different options. So they have extended versions of the knobs. So if you want even more knobs to twiddle, go and check out Alchemy Synth. But if we're just here in our regular ones, let's go into our synth bass, shall we? What's a cool bass that we can bring in here? Why don't we go with the new wave bass? And this sounds like this. Pretty cool, yeah? And with its default settings here, you can see this time we've got cutoff, mix, attack, and release. So we can adjust the cutoff on this one. So if we bring the cutoff right down, yeah, we now get that sound. As we bring the cutoff back up, and we can mix in. So we can adjust all of our settings here. And once again, if we wanted to save this version, we tap that and then we save it out as a new version. Now, not everything is going to have knobs. Things that don't make sense to have knobs are things like your classical grand, because your grand piano, guess what? Don't got no knobs because there's nothing to play with. So it is your electronic instruments, but things like your classic rock organ, they have some more customized things because you've got things like your drawbar and you've got your more sort of, realistic distortion and chorus and percussion controls in here. So different instruments will have different types of knobs going on. Your electric piano's got your tremolo, chorus, decay, and bell. This one's really fun to play around with, and I've used this to create some cool, very chorusy, tremolo-y E-piano sounds like this. Get a bit of extra bell into there. So there you go. And the reason that this is really cool is that the more you customize and make your sounds your own, the less you have to worry about things like copyright. Because if you're using default GarageBand instruments, default GarageBand loops, default GarageBand beats, there's a high chance that someone else has used them too. So the more that you come in here and you tweak your loops, you twiddle your knobs, and you change things up, the less likely you are to run into trouble, because the more uniquely you can make your sounds. So there you go. Jump in, twiddle your knobs, and have some fun. What's the knob count? Was the knob count at like about 60 in that one? Yeah. And as Jade says here, we're right on time, but we're going to go like a minute over here. If you want to play around, there's a heap. I've covered these in a previous video, but if you go down in here into other, some of these are actually really good. This French horn punches above its weight. All you've got is the attack and release on this one, but... pretty good sound, yeah. And then even like your brass ensemble. And I've used the oboe and the bassoon in a lot of songs. And your clarinet even sounds quite good. They sound good as a soloed instrument, but when you bring them into a mix, they sound even better. Very, very cool. Alrighty, yeah, and exactly as Tom says here, if you go into there, keyboard, more sounds, other. Just make sure that you're not in Alchemy, that you go out of Alchemy and then jump back into there. But thank you for helping out there, Tom, as per usual. Alrighty, we're short on time, so we won't have a resource of the week here, just except to remind you that if you do want to support the channel, and if you do want to learn about GarageBand, you can jump over here, studiolivetoday.com/courses, and check out the beginner's guide, 5 hours of hand-picked, curated content for GarageBand beginners and those starting out and even intermediate users. You'll find some stuff in there because the guide's got a lot of stuff in there. Like I said, it's completely searchable. You can even tap the microphone. That's great if you're on an iPad or an iPhone. You can tap the microphone and just say, I want to learn about organ. And you type in organ there, and then it'll go away and it'll find it. And it'll find the spot where I'm talking about there. And I don't know, compressor, treble, and bass. Maybe I don't ever talk about organ. But there you go. You can see echoes, reverbs, record a bass track. Don't you love it when you're showing a demo of something? You're like, actually, there may not be a whole lot of mentions of organ in this part. But yeah, a lot of the things that you're looking for are in there, like connecting microphones, connecting audio interfaces, recording, mixing, mastering. And as you can see there, you've got closed captions, English, French, Spanish, and you've even got a transcript. So you can come down here. If you're watching as you go along, there's a full transcript of everything that I say in the video. So if you do want to get a head start, a kickstart on your GarageBand learning experience, studiolivetoday.com/courses. That is going to do it for this one. We are done for the week, but don't forget, we've got other videos that happen here through the week, so keep an eye on your notifications. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you had some fun here today, if you learned a few things, give it the thumbs up. That always helps out and lets me know that I should come back and get up early every Monday morning to be here. Of course, it's Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening for many of you. Other way around, Monday, Tuesday. Time, it's just a construct. It's fine. Don't forget that we have Your Music Live happening every week, and this week is no exception. So Your Music Live episode 51 is happening on Saturday morning if you're here in Australia, Friday afternoon or evening. If you have a song that you want to submit to that, head over to studiolivetoday.com/YML and you can submit your songs. And I go through those and consider those for future shows. Thanks everyone for being here. Please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and rock on. Keep creating, folks. Let's play us out here with Kronk Song's GarageBand Weekly theme one more time while folks can say goodbye in the chat here. And I'll just stand here and awkwardly wave. Thanks for being here, folks. I'll see you next time.
GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly. Ooh. Need an answer to your question? John, you'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Hey, John. Hey, John. GarageBand Weekly.